Well, hello there, everybody. I think I'm actually a little bit early, but not by much. But anyway, hey, it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you like to be my neighbor? Oh, yeah. Recently just saw a movie that where that was in it. It was just funny. That's all I got to say. But anyway, as I get everything here loaded up, and it's all loaded up, I can see that the bus is clean, bus is filled up, and hey, enjoy the ride because it's going to be a fun one. We got a lot to cover here. It was up late last night, up early this morning. Of course, I get up early anyway, but this is an interesting perspective. So before I get into it, let me just speak favor over us. Good all the time. That's why it manifests all the time. It's a natural law. You know that. Yeah. Anyway, so you got favor. I got favor. They got favor. We all get favor today. So there you go. And as we like to say, nothing missing, nothing broken. Bosto, be of service to others. I mean, perfect peace. Yeah, that's what we're going for. So anyway, hello everybody in the chat room. How is it, Gilbert? How are you doing, brother? Sending much love to you and your mom. Uh, and maybe some rain. You did say, I think you said yesterday when we said I'm going to speak a cloud over you. Well, I think Gilbert said they actually got a cloud. So right on there. Joyce, how you doing, darling? Always good to see you. Thank you. Who else is hanging out here with us? But Felix, hello. Rick, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Elderberry, right down the road. Yes, Loretta, good to see you. Jet, Emperor Rex, hello. What's up? Grabbing one of those crowns. I don't even know what that's about. I see him, but yeah. What do I know? I'm just a simple man. That's it. Hello, Linda Espinosa. How are you, darling? Good to see you as well. Dave, honored to have you here as well in DC. Good to see you. Hello, Stephanie Marie. Speaking favor and prosperity all over you this day as well. B, good to see you as well. Regina, greetings from Texas. Yeah, sending positive vibes down there. You know, lived in Texas, and Texas is a cool place, other than it's being hot. But hey, it's hot up here. Uh, and it's humid as well. So, in fact, they told us today the mold spores in the air, 90,000. That's like freaking off the chart. And yeah, you feel it a little bit, but hey, But anyway, sending y'all much love down there in Texas as well. Colleen, how are you doing? Eye of the Maelstrom, what's up? Good to see you as well. So, bifurcation. I remember the first time I heard that word, bifurcation. And I heard it, we were my company was in uh, litigation with a another company. And anyway, this other company they had been in court before, and we had read in one a paragraph, that there was a bifurcated jury. Wow, bifurcated jury, what is that? Well, that's exactly what it says. It's a split. It's like today, politics bifurcated, religion bifurcated, theology bifurcated, philosophy bifurcated. Yeah, I mean, it's bifurcation everywhere. Everything is split. And if it implies that it's split, then it means that it's split from something. Now, was that the original split or was that a continuation of splits? No. Another word for bifurcation would be schism. Same type of thing. A schism. What does a schism do? It divides. Yeah. So as we go into the lecture today, this is really is a cool one. So we've all heard about giants, Nephilim. We talked about yesterday, and by the way, Cindy and Mike will be back next Thursday. They're taking care of some stuff, and good stuff. So we just continue to speak the good stuff over. Um, but we spoke about yesterday technology. The technology is a weapon. And our study today is going to be a continuation, as it will be tomorrow, because you can't cover this in an hour. It's just that freaking deep. So we've got our bucket where, okay, we this technology. I mean, I wrote down in here, technology. Is it man's creation or the gods? I say gods because, no one knows the one, but anyway. Um, so who created technology? Do the gods or does God use technology? Is technology a god within itself? Don't know. But what we do know is that apparently what we think is new is really not new. And then that would mean that it cycles and does who is using this technology. So that's where our study comes in. We're going to be talking about the giants, the Nephilim, those that ruled the earth. And here is a thought that I want you to keep in mind. What if the creation theory is wrong? What if the evolution theory is wrong? What if none of that is true, but yet they have an element of truth within each one of them? Today, we think our science is triumph over all other intellect, which is really not. Mankind is still a simian or reptilian, however you want to put it. We're just not that smart. We're not. We are a low IQ species, and technology is driving our IQs down lower, not higher. And so, man, we read yesterday, the fall, there really wasn't a fall, it was a bifurcation. Man split off of that which was our natural existence. Okay. And we found out that in Mesopotamia, which includes Sumer, the Babylonian Empire, there's the Akkadian Empire, there's just a number of them, but Babylon held kind of a really special place. It could be said that Babylon was the last place where the gods walked amongst the men, humans. Excuse me. Woo! Sneezing on, excuse me. Wow. Now, could be said that they still walk among us today. But what I'm talking about, they were in their natural form. And strange things were happening. It's my contention, it's just mine, that the Old Testament God that you read about, particularly the one that came in and required the circumcision and all that sacrifice, I don't think that God exists here anymore. I think it left. I think a lot of these gods left. And I also happen to think that the Nephilim, the Raphaim, the giants, I think they left too. I think they built spaceships. Because here's the thing, folks. And there apparently was, in fact, an incursion into the bloodline of us, purposely done. I don't know if it was an experiment. I don't know if it was a rebellion. We're going to get into that. But nevertheless, it happened. And what we fail to understand is that, for instance, if you take the written word that has been written on the Titans, that's what the Greeks called them, um, their craniums were on average 10 times greater than humans. Humans were nothing more than pigs. We're filthy. Think about it. We've got to bathe these bodies. If you don't, they stink. And, we were food. And that's kind of been taken out of the history thing, but it's there. And these giants, these titans, their IQs were probably on the level of 10,000. Ours is at 100. They were smart. Do you think that God understood the splitting of an atom? How about the hydrogen? Do you think that if you had an IQ of over 10,000, travel would be a problem for you? Do you think that you would not understand the basics of physics beyond our capacity? So that's where we're going to go. And remember, they were using technology. It could be said that in the collective consciousness of humanity itself is that the invention of a computer, the internet, is nothing new. We saw it before. So having said that, I found an interesting website, and we're going to go there first because I thought this story is just, well, I think you're going to like it. So let me go over right there. So this is, as you can see, mesopotamiangods.com. Cool website. Um, and I just want to read a little bit of this because it changes the perspective. As I said yesterday, every religion has its origins in Babylon. Every religion, regardless of its diversity or its difference in how they have their hierarchy, doesn't matter. It all came back. In fact, I know a little bit about this, having invented two payment systems. Our how we call capitalism, how we exchange money, it's based on a debt system. That came from Babylon. So it shows you we really haven't advanced all that far. So this is the Epic of Atra-Hasis, and it's interesting. So the author gets into the translation of this. This has been adapted by B.R. Foster. And it says, in the Epic of Atra-Hasis is the fullest Mesopotamian account of the Great Flood. The conditions immediately after the creation, isn't that interesting? Signifying that it was an event where the lower gods have to work very hard. Now, what was the very first thing that the God of the Old Testament, who I don't believe is here anymore, but in the narrative, what was the first thing it told Adam? It cursed Adam. Said that you were going to have to work and labor all the days of your life, and you would eat from the sweat of your brow, and that the earth would produce thorns and thistles. I mean, come on. Well, do you think that that's an original story? Hell no. You know, and by the way, it wasn't Moses who wrote the book of Genesis. A number of authors, particularly in the first couple of chapters. So this is where it came from. So the story would then be set up is that these gods, there is a hierarchy there, even if you're a fucking god. you still had to work your ass off. Now, isn't it odd that we think that, well, I can manifest my thoughts because that's what gods do? Well, really? Well, apparently it didn't work for these gods because they're down there sweating their asses off. It says the text is known from several versions. Two were written by the Assyrian scribes, one in the Assyrian, one of the Babylonian dialect. A third one on three tablets was written during the reign of King Anmi, I believe that's Sedukwa of Babylon. Now, this goes way freaking back, folks. This is like 1647 to 1626 BCE. I mean, we were talking about Nebuchadnezzar about 637, right? Uh-uh. It says parts are quoted in tablet, I believe that's 11, of the Epic of Gilgamesh, where the book of Genesis came from. Other influences are in the Babylonian history of the Belarus. This is a great website, guys, and if you're really into this, I encourage you to go and read and study it. They did a good job here. Um, it says all artifacts, colors, coding, and written writings in bold type, which italicized inside parentheses, are added by the editor R. Brown. I love this. Good full. You can got a trail here. So the gods in blue, they're a mixed breed, demigods in teal. Now, when the revelation came to me that the demigods walk among us, they're aware probably of people like myself who we can see them. I'm not saying we're perfect at it, but there's more than just myself. And when you begin to realize who and what these demigods are, um, they begin to notice you. So the story is written that complaints of the lower gods. So apparently their union was pissed off, right? And it was when the gods were man, they did forced labor. They bore drudgery. So Earth has always been a prison planet, a planet of pain, a planet of, labor. Yes, it holds great riches and wealth within, but the extraction of such is done by the sweat of your brow. And apparently the gods did the same thing. Now, understand these gods were not freaking what we would call a normal size human. They weren't 5 feet tall. They weren't 6 feet tall. No, depending if you read the book of Enoch, and we're going to refer to the book of Enoch, Enoch says that they stood over 4,500 feet. A royal cubit is what he said. And a royal cubit is from the tip of your finger to the end of your elbow. Typically about 21, 22 inches, 18, 19, depending if you're using the royal measure or not. So in the depiction in the Sumerian scrolls, that's what they're depicting here. You see above Enlil with a plow, Hea, the barley god, the god of stores. Then you have Nisaba, this is the goddess of grains, and master scribe Ninilil, the grain goddess, and undetermined. So that's what this scene is here. Great indeed was the drudgery of the gods. The forced labor was heavy. The misery was too much. Enlil's family did the work in the Eden. Enki's family worked in the mines of South Africa. The seven great Anu gods were burdening the lesser Igigi gods with forced labor. Now, it may be that the Igigi are our true creators, is where we come from, not from some fucking image of some god, making out of mud. No, No, it may be the Igigi. I love that name, by the way. May in fact be our true creators. You determine your own conclusion. In this depiction, you can see this is Eden prior to modern man. The gods did the work. And if you go back and read the story about the Adama, what was the Adama? It was a laborer, a gardener, you know, could be considered a migrant worker. That's what the task was. Because you don't read the story that he was sitting on his ass having a martini and smoking a cigar and just, digging to the sounds. No, getting a tan. No, he's out there working his ass off. Says the gods were digging watercourses, canals they opened, and life on the land. The Igigi gods were digging watercourses, canals they opened, and the life of the land as well. And you see within the drawings, the Igigi gods dug the Tigris River and the Euphrates thereafter. Now, these are not normal-sized human beings. These are giants. They heaped up all the mountains. I mean, if you were over 4,000 feet tall, making a mountain ain't no big freaking deal, is it? I didn't say that. That's what, Enoch said. It says there are several lines missing in the tablet. Years of drudgery. So the Anunnaki, the Agigi, none of them are having a fun time here. Enki's pissed off. Enlil's pissed off because, they don't even give them overtime. Apparently, it was a 24/7 thing. It says the vast marsh, because remember, there weren't 5 continents then, there was just one. Apparently, Enki drained it. They counted years of drudgery, the 40 years too much. The Anunnaki age 1 year to each 3,600 years on Earth. Those were in there, and there you actually can see it. These are the gods working, not humans. When the gods did the work, there was much complaining, forced labor. They bore night and day. There was no time off. They're gods. And so, is it any wonder that humanity is well versed in slavery, well versed in lording others because you may got something more than what they do, and that you'll kill a person for their tennis shoes? Well, we learn from the best. We learn from God. They were complaining, denouncing, muttering down in the ditch. Now, I've been a ditch digger. When I was 16, worked for a concrete company. And I know what it is to dig a ditch. It ain't fun. In fact, I think I was paid $2 an hour. Amazing after all this time how little has changed, right? And you would think that these gods had an IQ. What? This is the best they can do. Maybe God isn't that smart. We know the God the one I studied about, screwed up right and left all the time, but because of its pride, it was everybody else's fault. Not his. And doesn't this sound familiar? So they said, let us face up to our foreman, the perfect, that he must take off our heavy burden upon us. Structure, organizational chart, and apparently heavy taskmasters. Enlil, counselor of the gods, the warrior, come, let us remove him from his dwelling. So this is the fall. This is sin. This is now man, I want to say man, in this case gods, are saying no, had enough, ain't going to do this anymore. And if they're gods, that means that maybe they are more powerful than what they're leading on to be. I don't know. I mean, how freaking dumb or smart, no, how freaking dumb are you if you're being forced to work all the time, day and night, right? Um, in this um, picture, this is Inyel, the Earth colony commander. His group had it much easier in Eden than the other mining. There's several lines missing, but the next one we have now is alien versus alien, God versus God. So we're about to see one big battle. I think this is the one that destroyed Mars, because I happen to think at the same time there were these gods, they were living in Elysium. I think they were living on Mars. Space travel is no big freaking deal. For us, it is, because we were genetically made never to leave this earth. We never will. But that's another story for another time. So it goes into say in line 61, it says, now them call for battle. Battle, let us join warfare. So when you read the story in Genesis 6 about the fallen angels, Simjamai, and the rest of the boys, because I didn't read about any women being there. They seemed to be all the guys. When they came down and had their orgies going on and their genetic mixing and, experimenting, and the next thing you know, they've produced these race of beings that their cranial capacity was beyond what we even imagined. Do you think space travel would be a problem for them? Do you think that they couldn't figure out the physics? It says, then the gods heard his words, and they set fire to their tools. Now, let's just advance and let's go to a galaxy far, far away. Do you really think that it was physical fire? I contend it was probably a laser, some sort of light weapon. I have no doubt about it. The clay sickle, like everything else, another first discovered in Mesopotamia. Sorry, guys, down there in Australia. They put fire to their spaces and flame to their work baskets. Off they went, one and all, to the gate of the warrior Inyel's abode. All right, I'm going to break off there because I want to get the rest of this. So, as you can see, where I'm leaving this off, we're about to see this epic freaking battle of the gods, not us, the gods, right? I'm sure that we probably played some role in that. I don't know which. We'll get into that a little bit more. But so it kind of changes the whole narrative. You see, I believe that they're still here. We're still slaves. We'll never be free. It was never the intent. The rebellion that we're about to read, we got drawn up into it because when they started slacking off, we had to pick up the slack. Even today, when you are born, you are going to be given a short amount of years of where you're just going to be left on your own, digging the area, making friends, maybe learning how to talk, learning how to walk. But at some point in time, you're going to have to work. Most likely for the rest of your life, you're going to be paid below that which you're worth. And you're going to find out that really the only way you get into this system is by being in debt. Buy it now, pay for it later. That's slavery. Just a thought. So, as we continue, and by the way, I put this little PowerPoint together just to kind of give you an idea of exactly how we're doing. The original one that I did of this Giants was back in 2017. Um, and the question was, well, who were they? Even at your Bible stories, every kid knows about David and Goliath, right? But what we don't know is that Goliath was a remnant, a descendant of a lineage, but even Goliath was a contaminated half-breed. The real guys were something else. This is a depiction of the Yagigi. Strange, isn't it? It's one of the depictions. This is the cuneiform. This is actually one of the tablets that um, tell the story of the Yagigi. This what we're about to talk about here. This first war of the gods, and this thing was going to be, man. It wasn't just going to be limited to Earth. It was going to screw with the whole freaking solar system type of. And we still today, all the scholars that have looked at this, I mean, there's 1,001 different interpretations. We still really don't know. The best that what we can say is that this is some sort of technology that was used that somehow creates life, the spark of life. It goes along that line. But as you can see, these are not human beings. They have characteristics of being bipedal. They look to be humanid, but they're not human beings. And they're also very tall. They don't put that into the narrative. This is a depiction of the Yagigi in the result of the rebellion. Depiction of that. Here is a depiction again of the gods. Enlil, there's a story, the Yagigi are in here. This is what the race of the giants looked like. They varied in height of their race, but humans didn't fare well going up against them. Again, these giants, they were smarter. They had a knowledge that was most likely transferred to them in the transference of the DNA of an alien or of whatever origin these beings were. When that DNA connected to the human DNA, it produced a whole new bifurcated life form. This is a depiction of the Yagigi, and in here you can see them in the state of more of their reptilian nature. And this is a depiction based upon an artist who's read the same thing that we're reading, and probably about how this war was massive. We can't the reason why it's not taught because there's not that much known about it. Remember, the tablets were only discovered in the late 1800s. This is another picture of a Gigi. Little familiar, isn't it? And in the museums, I believe this is the one in London that has probably one of the largest exhibits of the Sumerian culture with Mesopotamia to Babylon. These are actual depiction of actual beings that were here. I believe a large portion may have left, but I don't believe they all left. We think it's science fiction when we see depictions of beings, intelligent, sentient gods. The being on the right is a god. And let us all hope that we never meet one of these. They're not exactly, how shall we say, they look at you and me as a pest more than anything else. But it's quite clearly that even the Egyptian lore tells us that the first Pharaoh was not human. The Agigi were the ones that started the rebellion against the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, by their very nature, were extremely tall. Some depictions say 200-300 feet tall. More of the depiction. And again, this is the story of the giants. They're, as you can see, so beings, they ruled the world. This is, I think, Isis believe in the first depiction with with the serpents. These serpents in the depiction would be very, very big. But yeah, another depiction of the giants. You can see the human slaves. It wasn't fun for humans. Again, we were really nothing more than cattle. We were speaking monkeys. And these stories we know are authentic because you can learn to read the Sumerian language. Isn't it amazing? And we've got depiction of their gods, yet I have contended for the longest time, not one person could have drawn a picture of a supposed Jesus. So anyway, this presentation then gets into the Nephilim, meaning the fallen ones, how the story that we got is really a Jewish interpretation that they took from Babylon. The Greeks used the word gigantes, meaning titans. They were part god, higher beings, part human, half-breeds, like the Titans in the Greek mythology, half-breeds. In other words, they could be in the presence of the gods, but the gods were always going to look at them as the red-headed bastard stepchild. So, having said that, and this was, and if you want to go back, there's over 100 slides to this presentation, but we know that the story is set. It's just now we're going to get a different narrative of it. And so let's pick up right where we left off yesterday, because this is some cool stuff, man. I mean, just cool stuff. So we left off yesterday in this particular document, and this document here is a paper written on the origin of demons. And when you read this thing, if you have any fear of demons or the angels, you'll realize they don't exist. They never have. But I'm giving more away, and listen, you may believe they exist, that's fine. But from a certain perspective, this explains why. So when we left off yesterday, like every technique created by man that overreached men, it made him into a slave of his own creation. I put the word own in there. Ain't that amazing? From mystical participation in nature, of which that's where we come from. That's where we desperately want to return back to. Don't know if it's possible. Um, According to this, it says, in the realms of the gods and the spirits, that's where we truly exist. Today, with man, it solely participates in his own creations now, reproducing dead context in the void that poses as meaningful. We are the narrative machines, the dead processors of dummy objects and reified shrouds that command us. As it said, and we read yesterday, it sends us off into a very dark place. This chapter is called The False Enochian Doctrine of the Fall. And I think you're going to enjoy this. It says the much popular and exploited Ethiopian Aramaic Book of Giants in the second Aramaic Enoch Pentateuch thwarts the story about the Babylonian Agigi gods worshipped as the Elohim by the Hebrews in Hebrew pre-monotheistic times, i.e. pre-6th century BCE. That's important. Why? Why? Because they were in captivity in Babylon. They were being completely indoctrinated. They were in re-education camps. Just put it that way. And labels them as Nephilim. In fact, giants were the sons and daughters of gods reborn in flesh. They surpassed the mortals not by size per body, but by the strength of their daemons, their intelligence, their wisdom, and their occult skills. And you can read this part in Genesis 6, because if you go back, you find that these fallen angels are teaching men and women, they're teaching you ladies how to put on the paint on your face and how to really show the girls out, and the dudes, man, they're showing you how you can mix certain compounds and pooh, it blows up, makes fire. That's the type of stuff, right? And in one point it actually says that one of these angels taught them the art of war. Well, we just read the very beginnings, and we'll continue even tomorrow on that story. It says the story about the purpose of Nephilim in taking the daughters of mortals is also false. Their duty was to govern and to distribute fates and destinies on behalf of the gods. The apocalypse contained therein was much exploited, and the esoteric revelations of the Jewry were carried into the Christian religion. The Book of Watchers spawned the idea of the fall of angels, whereas it is a misguided rationalization of the existence of other forces guided by a typically Manichaean division in good and evil. Moreover, they carried over this error into Christianity, where the existence of demons is justified by the idea of the fall. So if there was never a fall, spiritually, right, there would never be any demons or angels. What would be the need for them? I mean, are they not all from the same source? Do they not all exist in the same realms? And the crazy thing about it, it's just been within the last 1,200 years that we've given these comic book characters names. We assign power to them. It was us, not them. Just saying. Interestingly, though, it may be that it is a deformed legend of the chief rebel, Igigi, The dragon, Allah, who disobeyed the Anu gods, and for his transgressions from his blood, the Biliet, Ilia, according to myth, created the race of men. There are, in fact, no fallen angels. The demonic tribes of the underworlds and the astralistic chthonic domains have nothing to do with them and function in their own dominion pertaining to their own worlds. They belong to the ever-weaved organic whole of the world and have their respectable places in it. The only fall, if we want to consider it, is being reborn in the animal world. That is when a daemon of greater order is migrating into human flesh. It merely means incarnation, inasmuch as abandoning the Dionysian tomb with death and being restored to one's rightful spiritual domain should be considered disincarnation or ascent. And I kind of dig that one. If I look at all the so-called writings, right? We've all read them. Maybe, just maybe, that's what we do. We are gods. We're not the gods, but we're gods, goddesses. And we come into these incarnations because we like it. We like it a lot. And as hard and as miserable and painful and drudgery, depression, oppression, all of that combined, we still, with so-called higher intelligence, say, I want to do it again. You know, I may have messed up in that last time down there, but I'm telling you, I'm going to get it. Yeah. What if it's just that? What if this is exactly what the god or gods or whatever meant? That's why, we bring all of our imaginary friends with us. Our angels, our gods, our saviors, our demons, because they're voyeurs. I guess there may be perverts. I don't know. Maybe they get off watching. I mean, you can take that down a road if you want, but apparently they like seeing what we do. And apparently when we're not up on stage, we're out there watching the others. I mean, what if it's just that simple? Okay. Because again, it just simply throws out the whole need that if there's no fallen, that this is exactly what this is. It's an amusement park. We built it. Well, maybe we didn't build it, somebody else did. But when we found it, it was far out. It says the movement up and down the chain of magnitude of being may be also vertically considered fall or ascent, but that should be understood as moving in between the worlds from the divine fire to chaos of the cosmic Tatarism. The mystical directions on the rows of the winds should be understood both as moving through space, but as coordinates, depending on the eye of the beholder. The sun is rising in the east and carries the souls from the south. In summer equinox, it is giving birth to souls in Cancer, whereupon they are released in Capricorn in the north during the winter equinox. Likewise, Osiris is rising from the south or the underworld in the winter time and is enthroned in the north during the summer equinox. Now, you just got to stop right here and go, okay, So this is taken from the perspective of someone who lives in the northern hemisphere. And, so what happens if you're just naturally down in the southern hemisphere? What, do you reverse it? So north would not be where the ice cold, evil comes from, but the, you know, beautiful ice queen. I don't know. Uh, every culture sacralized their directions differently. Right now, I'm sitting with my face towards the wall. Northwards, with the eyes of imagination, I can reflect on Cygnus, Ursa Minor, behind the walls, and Draco and Sirius, Orion and Aldebaran behind me. Yet, it is relative to my position and is not in accord with cultural sacred clocks, astronomical, and astrological meanings. The point of reference is always the real, not my personal projections of the real. What is hidden, the underworld, south below the horizon, is the domain of the fearsome unknown, the tomb of the planets, moon, and sun. It is called profane, but should be called sacred, inasmuch as the sacredness of unknown illuminating darkness is untouched by the profane. So seems profane to the fearsome, and what is known appears as sacred, but it is profaned. It's like I'm reading the book of Ecclesiastic. What? So, isn't this how this works? That the eye, that actually we see everything inverted upside down, and then as it gets into the brain, we reapply, the brain puts it back in. And that if the science has shown that each of us, that when we're looking at something, that actually the brain, in about 40% or more, is actually putting something in there that's not really there. But we'll never look at it. We look at it and that's what it looks like. Illuminating darkness. Isn't that interesting? And I've said this before, that you read about, in the particular, in the book of Genesis, the only place that God could have come from was the darkness, the void. Because if you read the words, there was nothing. It came from the nothingness. But somehow we're taught to fear the darkness. But apparently it was the darkness that was here first before the light. But then our teachings of the light is not light, actually. It's a profane light. We can't see the true dark light because our minds have been trained to reject that. And you won't accept anything that you've rejected, particularly something that if you considered sacred, etc. Says the original meaning of these terms meant touched and appropriated by humans, i.e., profane. And within the demarcation of the divine, that is sacred, untouched by human beings. And so right there tells you that if you're a human being, I don't know who the human beings are. Genetically, we know that they don't exist anymore. We're all hybrids, but all right, let's just say it's us. And saying by here, it's like, they look at us like we're on the other side of the railroad tracks. We're from the poor side of town. Yeah. Do, 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 why? Scooby Dooby. Remember the song? The last time, but anyway, so I digress. The trick lays in perceiving the known, the profane, as sacred in each instance of its rediscovery and consecration. Paying attention to the little gods of life and death makes lives of great mystery. I love this. Where am I at in time? Wow. Often wise, thus the underworld is confused with what lies below and is done away with as in fatalism of the primitive thinking. Wow. For some reason, that word just really hit me. It's like, wow, in fatalism. And if you have that, then it shows that you're of a primitive nature of thinking. Because what makes the difference of something being down as opposed to being up? Isn't it ridiculous when you think that we have been taught by these constricted, limited points of view that, well, if it's down, it's bad, and if it's up, it's good? How ridiculous is that? But that's how most people perceive things. The South, that in Arabic lore is filled with demons, let us not confuse the spatio-temporal directions with metaphysical verticalization of the domains. At certain points, they conclude together that is both the South and the North are a great cosmic void. And I'm just a simple guy, but let's just say I could put you out in the middle of outer space. You can't see the earth. You're out there, man. How are you going to determine what's up and what's down? You know how you're going to do it? You're going to do where your corona, your crown, is set. So if you're up, you could be down, but if you're down, you could be up. You see it? It's just a big cosmic void. I mean, how it says, yet it is the north because of the spaciousness we experience when gazing up, and the inaccessibility, awe, and terror of mysterious quarters of the universe that make us reassured that to conquer this space is to become initiated. It is the sacredness of space that we see within the range of our seeing that makes us wonder, not the unseen that we almost never contemplate. Therefore, the underworld of shadows, the Plutonia, are the gateways into the dimensional of caverns and the subterranean worlds that one can visit solo only. Yet the Styx and the Arcanian and the different worlds, not detached from the spatial temporal dimensions, are there is seamless integration of all the places of interest. So I'm going to break off there. It gets better. The organic view of the world, every bestiality and ideally in the eyes of the beholder belong to it. The civilizational training in defining humanness. The prime duty of civilization is to shape the logos and the definition of humanness. Great spot to let off on it. Because, the question, I guess, is we're just sitting here contemplating, what does it mean to be human? So often I hear it rationalized that it's our soul, Wayne. It's the what? For 50 years, I believe that every human being was a sinner. All of them have fallen from grace. All have sinned and fall from grace. And that there was this cosmic war that somehow or another we brought on ourselves, and that there is these unseen forces, entities that are somehow trying to take our souls. Apparently, souls are a real big thing over there. And then you've then got the so-called perfect God that, quite frankly, if it's perfect, then it's responsible for the imperfectness. But that isn't the way it seems, right? And it messes you up. They say that without Christianity, there would be no civil society. That's ridiculous. They say without religion, humans would be basically sightless. We would be lost. We would not know where to go or how to go. And that as humans, we are flawed. And that as humans, we need an intermediary because we can't connect to that which supposedly made us, but now has rejected us, and somehow or another, the whole world is all involved in that and that alone. Hey, no disrespect, but biggest pile of bullshit I've ever seen. I know, because it took me 50 years to get out of it. I was in it for 50 years, and it seems like it took that long to get. What if it's not that way at all? I mean, instead of the blame game, maybe we can step back and say, okay, for the last 2,000 or so years, we can't seem to get that right. So if you can't get it right within 2,000 years, then maybe it ain't right. Maybe the intelligent thing to do is to, all things considered, saying, well, wouldn't it probably be at least somewhat of a good idea that maybe we tried something different? Yeah. Maybe if we stop believing in so-called teachings that no one can verify, because the ones that supposedly wrote it are all dead. I mean, it'd be like someone getting and finding the numerous things that I have written and somehow, has this moment of epiphany of talking with God and suddenly takes that and makes that the new, script. That would be fucked up, man. I just telling you straight out. That ain't the way it's supposed to be. But then on the serious side, it clearly implies then we're not here alone. And I'm not buying the narrative that, well, those were ancient cultures. That was the pre-Adamic world. That was a time before the modern era. Oh, what? Modern era comes along and, oh, they're gone. Oh, there it is. But yet, today, you will see more people seeking the occult than ever before. And as we all know, if you don't have a compass going in, or at least having the breadcrumbs or the rope, you can get lost in that, man, in a wild ride. But point back, I'm convinced they're not gone, folks. They never have been gone. I don't believe that there is just one God. I don't believe that there is a Savior, a Jesus, a Messiah. There's no need for a Messiah if, in fact, there never was a fall. A fall, again, was the separation of what was our original nature, was to coexist within that nature, but we bifurcated from it. That isn't sin. I think it's the way it is. Creation can't be defined within a narrow perimeter of, a planet being terraformed. That's not creation. We don't know what creation is because we're so limited. Again, for 50 years, I studied. I know the book of Genesis. I can almost quote to you word for word of it, through the Amplified, no less. That's not creation. I mean, it may be a part of it, an aspect of it, but I don't think we really get the idea of what creation is. Because if the story is right, whenever that moment, that spark happened, that's when you and I came in. That would make us, by necessity, demigods of a certain level. We'll pick up tomorrow. um, I'll have to read back the comments. Hey, Brian, what's up? Let me know if you like this. I mean, it's an interesting take. And as we continue to get into the story of the giants here, the part of what we'll pick up tomorrow is that we're missing something. Huge chunks of history have been removed. We know they've been removed. I don't know who has them. I don't think any human has them. These creatures, these beings, I'm talking to you now. You're here. There are many more that we know that you're here. We can see you. We can sense you. And I can tell you, folks, there's some who don't like us, and there's some who seem to have, like, yeah. And then there's some that have a complete indifference. I have a sense that many are complaining that they want to go back to the old times, the old ways. We have gotten out of control, and it's made it completely unmanageable from their perspective. There has to be a culling taking place. There has to be. And I believe they put the warnings here. I believe the Georgia Guidestones were put in by the demigods, the very beings that we read about and that a vast majority of humans today worship. A vast majority who call upon their name and invoke in their name. This is nothing new. It goes back to the time of these giants. And it's my hypothesis that we were so traumatized by that event that we have purposely re-altered history, rewritten history, and forgotten that history. But unfortunately, you can't do it that way. Remnants of it will always remain. And in this time of where one era is ending and a new one's beginning, they're feeling the same effect as we are. And maybe they don't care anymore. There's so much misinformation, disinformation, information that it doesn't matter. I could sit here until, the cows come home, right? The old expression. Doesn't matter. I don't think they care either. I have a feeling that there is a big crap sandwich that we're going to have to take a big bite of. But and probably in vain saying it, I wish it wasn't that way. I wish that we really had the ability, but I think we are at such a disadvantage that we will experience in the same thing of those who have preceded us. And no doubt that if time continues to go forward, whether it's the next 100,000 years or the next 10,000 years, that next civilization will most likely be in the same position that we are right now. Because they're not going to allow this type of technology, the recordings, the images, and all that to exist. They will destroy what they have already done. They've done it before. There were records that were meant to be left for us. Those that have already, they tried to warn us. They took it away. And it's the same thing that they're going to do here. They're going to take it away. At least that's my opinion. Hey, Scotty boy. What's up, everybody? So, yeah. Epic of Atra-Hasis, it says, we are in formation. Yeah. Isn't it odd that it seems like we're nothing now more than data producers, more data. Yeah. All right. Much love to all of you. This is, like I said, we just discuss here. Nothing's in concrete. I mean, the Sumerian tablets, well, they're in stone, but, but yeah, you know what I mean. It's worthwhile giving alternative thought to alternative approaches. And again, they're here. These gods, they've never left. Many of us know this. Many of us have sensed it. Of course, the people out in the other world, they hear this stuff and they'll say, "Oh, those people are lost. Oh man, can you believe it? They had the truth and they walked away from it." Well, it just depends on whose truth, I guess, huh? Anyway, so big hug. Bonnie, you're right. The Tatarian civilization wiped. Yeah. I mean, if you believe in the catastrophism, of which there's apparently been many, they've taken again, and then they rewrite this thing, and then it becomes gospel. It becomes the rhema of the logos. Yeah, then it becomes truth. Uh, so anyway, Shirley says maybe Jesus is a reset command and it knows our voice. Maybe Jesus is an artificial intelligence sent here. Maybe it's the algorithm that was able to get through the net and it's been hijacked. But if you strip out what they hijacked, the story of what the guy supposedly said, in a lot of ways, was really cool. I know I've got ridiculed for this, but I'm telling you, the Jesus cat that I know would be the one sitting down smoking a joint with you, having a beer or maybe a cocktail. Doesn't matter. You can then be, sitting and philosophizing. Why? It's part of the experience. And yeah, you don't need those elements, but hey, why not? It always adds a little bit more to the conversation. It's just a thought. Man, people get so freaking uptight. It's like, it's okay, man. It's okay. All right, folks. Mary Wins, much love to you, darling. Susie Q, how are you doing? Lost in Space, Scotty Boy. All right, everyone. I'm going to get the puck out of here. And y'all have yourselves a fantastic day. And I'll see you tomorrow. Um, we'll finish up. I mean, we'll never finish up on this. I got books that I've just gotten. It's just real interesting. Imagine the Hindu culture is now lining up with what we're finding in the Sumerian culture, that there was apparently a nuclear war with these gods here on Earth. And it extended into Mars as well. Except something happened in Mars that apparently they didn't even anticipate. But you can figure out your own story. Jesus and the Impossible Burger. Just no mayonnaise. No mayonnaise. I mean, it's like Bruce Willis in the movie the whole 9 yards, where he's up there in Canada and he gets a burger and they bring it with mayonnaise and he says, the next person that brings me a hamburger with mayonnaise on it, I'm going to fucking kill. All right, everybody. Much love to you. I love you all. I love this group. It is one of the more open-minded, loving groups that I have seen out there. And y'all just make it great. So appreciate it. Thanks, Steve. Right back at you, brother. All right, we'll pick up tomorrow. And in the meantime, have yourselves a cosmic day. All right. Bye.